And we are back. It's the Old Gab Box podcast and radio show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Again, brought to you by Casa de Campo in the Dominican Republic. The late, great Pete Dye designed 4 courses at Casa, and Teeth of the Dog will reopen at the beginning of December in just a few weeks. I can't wait to be down there in the middle of December. Jerry Pate has been doing the redo. It is going to be phenomenal. And if you want to plan a great family vacay, go to casadecampo.com. All right. Our next guest, a longtime friend, in fact, Brett Norsworthy has been on our show before. I'm on Brett's show talking a little golf during the golf season, and he and Brian Dacus do an incredible job. They're on every day 3 to 6, Sports 56, Sports Line in Memphis. He's an icon in Memphis radio. Brett, that's what you want me to say, right?
I guess that'd do it, Doug. We go a long ways back.
Yeah, we do.
Always fun to have you on talking golf with us, but we go back to our college football days.
Yes.
You in Birmingham and cover the tight end college basketball. We've been around a while. We've seen a lot. It's always fun. It's always fun to visit with you.
Yeah, well, it's a great time of year as golf winds down. You can really concentrate on the big games in college football, and obviously we're segueing into basketball, and we're seeing some really great basketball games too. So I don't know. I love the college sport, and of course for our listeners and viewers, Brett has been a part of the Ole Miss football radio network for a long time, like a decade. And I can only imagine your show in the afternoons now. What percentage is Lane Kiffin the convo? Is it like 80%, 85%?
It's a lot of conversation about him. It's a lot of conversation of the good on the field. Four out of 5 years, double-digit win season,
Incredible.
10-1, heading into the battle for the golden egg next week.
Yes.
Prolific offenses, but we know why he's largely in the news everywhere these days, because his name gets linked to every job, just in the SEC. Seriously, we'll go through it quickly. Well, he was at Tennessee. He's at Ole Miss. That's 2 out of 16. He turned down Arkansas to take Ole Miss, so that's 3. He was at Alabama, and I don't think he would even packed his clothes if he'd have been offered the job after Coach Saban retired. So that's 4 places he's been linked to. This is the second time being linked to LSU, the second time being linked to Florida, so that's 6. He was linked to Texas when they hired Sark. That's 7. Now, I'm not talking about getting ready to be hired, but he was in the running 2 years ago for Mike Elko at A&M. Well, that's 8. We almost have a quorum with Lane Kiffin being linked to everybody in the SEC. So he hadn't been linked to Kentucky and Vanderbilt, but just about everywhere else, or Georgia, because they got the great coach in Kirby Smart. But this comes up every single year. We understand it. I think it's a good thing. I'm ready for it to end, and I think it will end in a happy story of Lane Kiffin staying at Ole Miss.
It's interesting, Brett. Obviously, Jimmy Sexton is his agent, and Jimmy controls the vast majority of the big-name coaches. And Jimmy is right now working deals, working new contract, whatever. And Lane, he wanted that Alabama job when Coach Saban abruptly resigned. I don't know how close he came, but I think he's happy at Ole Miss. But Brett, here just today, if you go to social media, LSU reports the Kiffin deal is done. The Gators have canceled the interview with the Tulane coach because Kiffin, the deal is done. There is so much out there, Brett. It is crazy. You're right. It is almost getting annoying. All these breaking stories.
There's 3 places that are certain in 2026 Lane Kiffin is going to be their coach. Ole Miss, Florida, and LSU. Well, we know that can't happen. Ironically, coincidentally, next year, because of a scheduling quirk, LSU has to come back to Oxford for a second year in a row. We're going to 9 next year, and that was how it fell out. We go to OU in back-to-back years at Ole Miss. And next year, we go back down to the swamp where Lane lost, one of the most heartbreaking games in Ole Miss football history last year, win in the college football playoff. And I'm not saying Ole Miss would have won it last year, but would have been an extremely tough out, and I think could have at least gotten to semis, maybe even finals. But I think Ohio State was the best team, as I think they are this year. And I don't think Ole Miss can win it all this year, but I think they can play for it all. They can get to the finals and for sure the semis. And that even adds more intrigue to all this. And every friend I have in the Ole Miss world, in the college football world, texts me almost daily. And I told one friend of mine, I said, quit texting me every day, asking me what I think he will do, because all I can tell you is what I hope he will do, and I hope he stays at Ole Miss.
It's interesting, though, because, Brett, if he was staying firmly entrenched. And I watched that special that they produced about the trials and tribulations of Lane, and I really believed it when he was talking about how much he liked Oxford, and his son is playing high school football there, and his ex-wife has moved there, his brother's on staff. I mean, it just seems so perfect. Sounded like he's found his spot. But Brett, why hasn't he come out and just said it? I'm staying. That's the thing that I just don't get. If he's staying, why not go ahead and say it?
Well, I think his representation, you mentioned Jimmy Sexton, he's the best and a good friend and does a great job for his clients. I think the rising tide lifts all boats, especially in the coaching world and with CAA and with Jimmy. If he can set a top line with Lane, then kind of everybody else has to get to it. You have to match the market. Every year he kind of has one guy out there that kind of moves the market, and this year it's Lane. It was Lane in 2020 when it was really close at Auburn. I think I left out Auburn in my quorum call earlier. He was real close to that. If it hadn't been for his family, led by his daughter, Landry, begging him not to leave Oxford, I think he would have taken the job that year. But he is happy. You can be happy and listening to other offers. He's doing it, and he is happy. That entire special, I promise you, it was sincere and well done. I've seen the transformation. We share that kinship. He'll be about 5 years next spring into not drinking. I'm 32 years into not drinking. And we share that kinship and often talk about it. Every old drunk finds each other, and we all commiserate about it. And really, what we put a lot of people that we love through, and he doesn't want to do that again. And that's why I think it's a really tough decision for him, because if it's a family vote, I don't think there's any doubt he doesn't leave Lafayette County.
Tell me this, though, because I thought it was telling when Coach Saban on game day 3 or 4 weeks ago, he clearly said, listen, he goes, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said, Lane has such a good situation at Ole Miss. The athletic director, the president, everybody's on board. And Coach Saban said, that's what you want. Why would you want to leave for a chaotic situation at LSU, which he's familiar with, or a situation at Florida, which is tumultuous as well? I mean, we kind of forget what Coach Saban said. He basically was saying Lane needs to stay where he is because he's got a great situation.
I was sure listening to him because he's the best ever, and he knows the SEC, and he knows one of those two jobs really well. He had one, and the LSU partisans like to say 3 of their last 4 coaches have won national championships. Well, that is unarguable. Coach Saban did, Les Miles did, Ed Orgeron did, and Brian Kelly did not. Here's something else that's unarguable. They fired 3 of the last 4. The only one they didn't fire was Nick Saban, because Wayne Huizenga, probably the most hated guy in LSU football history, because everything Coach Saban built at Alabama, he would have done at LSU. And I say this lovingly, he would have made the most insufferable fan base more insufferable if he had built that dynasty at LSU. But he left for the Dolphins. I think if he had stayed in the NFL, he'd have been a great NFL coach. It's Nick Saban. He knows what he's doing, but he missed the college game, and with Terry Saban and Jimmy Sexton, Alabama got him and rewrote the history book. And at Florida, in the last 60 years at Florida, everybody says anybody can win at Florida. But in the last 60 years, only 2 have really done it. Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. Let's go through them. Ray Graves, Steve Spurrier's coach. He was forced out. Doug Dickey didn't win. Charlie Pell, good man and good coach, couldn't win enough. Gary Darnell, Galen Hall, Will Muschamp, Ron Zook, Jimmy McElwain, another good coach. Dan Mullen, another good coach. Billy Napier, another good coach. That's 2 out of 10 in the last 60 years that's done it. That's Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. And I love Steve Spurrier like everybody else does. And he was an SEC playing and coaching revolutionary.
Yes.
He won 1. Urban Meyer won 2. 2 beats 1 in my book.
Yeah, that's interesting. And of course, the big rumor was that Coach Spurrier took a private plane to meet with Lane in Oxford. He dispelled that yesterday in classic Spurrier fashion when he said, no, we actually met in the Bahamas. And we played a little golf down there. So anyway, that's hilarious. All right, we'll wrap this segment up. So bottom line, you think Lane is staying in Oxford?
I do, Doug. I think as the weekend and into next week plays out before the Egg Bowl, there will be some resolution. Will it be a big press conference like you're hiring a coach? No, I think it probably comes in something simple like Lane tweets out a contract and tags Keith Carter and says, hey, we need to know the signature on this.
It's going to be interesting. So do you think with Lane potentially staying, Eli Drinkowitz then moves into the next level at LSU in Florida? Or maybe they're already talking to Coach Drink?
It feels like, and he's a Jimmy Sexton CAA
Yeah.
client. as well. And that I think that's part of the negotiation of raising the bar, because somebody may have had an appetite for Coach A to pay him $13 million, but Coach B, I only want to pay you $10 million. Well, when you get that ceiling up there, then that's when the agent walks in and goes, "No, you're going to pay the last guy 13. You're paying this one 13 too."
I just think the money thing is irrelevant anymore because there's so much money rolling in, and potentially there could be more coming in with this private equity situation happening in the Big Ten and eventually in the SEC as well.
Doug, I'll tell you a quick story about the money. You mentioned my years at Ole Miss. I'm in my 18th year, and Houston Nutt, when he got the job at Ole Miss, he got me on the Ole Miss crew. We go way back to Arkansas connections, to Eddie Sutton's basketball camp in 1976.
Wow.
I was a camper, and he was a counselor as a player for Coach Eddie Sutton in basketball as well. And every year, we'll text each other around the start of the season, and I'll text him, "Well, I've made it 16 years. You only made it 4. I've now made it 17 years at Ole Miss. You only made it 4. I've now made this year. I made it to my 18th year. You only made it 4." And he'll text back. He goes, "Yeah, and I made more in 1 month than you've made in 18 years."
Yes, no doubt about it. All right, what about Auburn though, Brett? I mean, out there looming, LSU, Florida, obviously dominating the conversation. Arkansas, I think, is a good job with a lot of potential. But what about Auburn? I mean, where are they headed? Is it John Summerall?
It feels like John Summerall, and he was on Coach Matt Luke's staff for 3 years. Coach Freeze hired him, and then after the change, he coached with Coach Matt Luke. He was our linebackers coach for 3 years, and just a great guy and a great coach, and would make somebody, I mean, you would just be really proud to have him as a head coach. And I have said, I think there's a lot of Pat Dye in him. Coach Dye went off and won it. Wyoming, won at East Carolina. John Summerall's won at Troy. He's won at Tulane. And then you get thrown into that. And like Coach Dye, he played in the SEC, but he didn't play at Auburn. Coach Dye played for the big rival Georgia. John played at Kentucky from Huntsville. And Alabama and Auburn probably both made a mistake in recruiting him and not getting him. And now he's back in the SEC. He knows it. He knows that state. And I think Auburn would be way ahead. You mentioned Arkansas. And it's not really growing that big, but there's some conversation of Pat Fitzgerald and his return to college football. He's been fully cleared, exonerated over just absolutely bogus stuff at Northwestern. And imagine him at a place with all the bells and whistles and the facilities and the budget like Arkansas, because he never had an assistant coach budget at Northwestern like he would get on day one at Arkansas.
Yeah, that would be an interesting hire, and I would applaud that for sure. I know Bobby Petrino is still doing the full court press, trying to get back in there full time. All right, let's get back to the game. Day after Thanksgiving, early kick, 11 a.m. for the Egg Bowl in Stark Vegas. And Mississippi State certainly has shown flashes this year. Georgia brought him back down to earth, although I think Georgia's getting better at the right time. But break down the game, because Ole Miss, you win that game, a phenomenal 11-1 season. You head into the playoffs. As you said, I think with the chance to do some damage, and I would give Ole Miss a chance to win the whole darn thing the way they're playing.
Well, we all in the Ole Miss world love and admire and know real affinity for him as a man and coaching abilities for Jeff Lebby. And I would tell State fans all offseason, be patient. He's going to get it right. And Doug, I was lucky enough to call the upset. On our show, I picked the upset of Mississippi State over Arizona State. They almost beat them last year with Cam Scatterboo out at Tempe. But they didn't, came up just a little bit short and had a rough year. And State is playing for bowl eligibility. And it's a big game. I'm not going to label it one side or the other more of a Super Bowl, because it's big for both sides. And Mississippi State, they treat it really, really big. It'll be really loud, 11 o'clock. Ole Miss played there in 2007. That was the year before I started on that crew, and lost an 11:30 game, a JP game that day, and that was Ed Orgeron's last game on some really, really poor coaching decisions by him, and that led to him being fired and Houston Nutt getting hired. So a Friday Egg Bowl in Starkville, I should probably appreciate it, because I don't think Ed Orgeron would ever hired me. All
right, got to get your pick on the Iron Bowl too, because you have Alabama friends, obviously. I have a ton. And the vast majority are so nervous, Brett. It's like, oh my gosh, the Auburn game. I'm like, guys, Auburn does have a losing record. Auburn fired their coach 3 weeks ago. It's somewhat of a tumultuous deal going on the Plains, but yet there's nervousness among the Alabama crowd. What do you make of the Iron Bowl?
Well, I tell you why they're nervous. Because Alabama, they do have a 2-game win streak there on the Plains. They won in 21 and 23. But look how they won. Bryce Young, freak show in overtime in 2021. And then the Gravedigger play with Milroe 2 years ago to 007 to Isaiah Bond. That's how they won those last two. Every Alabama fan, and you know it, going to get those games there, and I've been to a lot of the games in the Iron Bowl at every place, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and Auburn. And we know the voodoo that is real down on the Plains, especially on that day.
All right.
Auburn plays better on that day than most of the rest of the year. Again, I'm not saying it's more important to either side, but I do think in the Egg and Iron Bowl world, especially when the game is at Starkville and at Auburn in Egg and Iron, I think it means more to them than when the games are in Tuscaloosa and then Oxford. I just do. And you can feel it the second you get there. But I think in the end, Alabama will win. But if they don't, Doug, that'd be 9-3. And now, and I hate it for the bowl system because we have a great bowl that I love in Memphis and the Liberty Bowl. And I've had such fun out at all the bowls I've been to. But if you're not in the playoffs, everything feels like the Poulan Bowl.
I'm with you on that. You know, and it's funny. I think back to the Gravedigger, 4th and 31, and Auburn rushes two guys, and Milroe standing back there all day, and then throws the pass in the corner, and the defensive back, he could have tackled Isaiah Bond, but he just let him catch it. You know, you win that game, and maybe Hugh Freeze is still the coach. That was a pivotal moment in the Freeze era, I do believe.
Yeah, and Coach Freeze just had the worst luck in those close games. Just couldn't win any of them. And I hope he sits out of here. First thing I want him to do is get good and well.
Yes, we wish him the best.
Get on a good health plan. And then look at coaching somewhere else, maybe in 27.
Yeah, no, he didn't look healthy to me all season long, and obviously he has to take care of that. All right, before we let you go, I got to ask you this question too, because I know you're going to give me a great answer. Did the college football committee, and I'm not a big fan of the committee, by the way, there's no way these people in this room can watch every game from the beginning of the season from August to now. But anyway, did Bama get screwed being pushed down to 10?
Royally. And for Ole Miss, it sent tremors through Ole Miss, because if they will drop Alabama like that after a narrow loss, what in the world would they do to Ole Miss if we lost to Mississippi State?
Oh.
I mean, they'd drop us down to the Cure Bowl. So, but we know in the last 2 years we've had 3 chairs of the College Football Playoff Committee: Ward Manuel, Mack Rhodes, and Hunter Yurchek. How is it so hard to find somebody that can go out there and eloquently enunciate what college football playoff stands for, what the committee's trying to do? And I'm just going to say it. Hunter Yurchek has been an abject disaster running his own football program. How does he know what a good one looks like?
Oh, and he was so nervous. I mean, he wasn't smooth at all in that interview with Reese.
He looked almost as nervous as Bobby Petrino at the press conference with the neck brace on.
How can we ever forget that, right?
Well, I said it was the worst neck brace press conference since Ted Kennedy after Chappaquiddick with the neck brace on. But at least with Bobby Petrino, nobody got killed.
Oh, my goodness. Good stuff there, Brett. You're tickling me. All right. Well, next week's a big one. Obviously, Thanksgiving. I wish you and your family the best. Good luck. That Egg Bowl, I'm going to be watching, my friend. Now that golf is wrapping up at the RSM, I got a few weeks off.
Best time of the year. I call Thanksgiving the beginning of eating season, from now through the Christmas holidays and the rivalry weekend. Single favorite weekend of the year for me. And I used to often go to Egg one day and Iron the next, but the birthday candles started eliminating that.
Yes, I'm with you on that. All right, so to wrap it up, the bottom line, you got Lane staying in Oxford, you got Ole Miss beating Mississippi State, and you got Alabama beating Auburn. Am I right on all three of those?
I do, and I think Georgia and Georgia Tech will be a great game.
Ooh, that'll be
great
good.
Quarterbacks, Gunnar Stockton and Haynes King, but Georgia prevails, and that they're playing that at the Dome, not on campus at Tech.
Yeah, and Haynes King, I'm telling you, Haynes King could be one of those sleeper Heisman guys if he has a big game against Georgia.
I have a vote. I tell you right now where I may go. Why don't we appreciate running backs like we used to?
The Notre Dame running back is great.
Lacey has a big egg bowl. With
Yeah.
my vote and my Ole Miss ties,
Yeah.
I'm voting for Juan Lacey 1,
Wow.
Jeremiah Love 2, and Haynes King 3rd for his
Wow.
total stat line.
I like that. Man, we're breaking ground here on the old
we go.
Gab Box
Let's
podcast. I think the Notre Dame running back's having a pretty good year too.
Yeah, that's why I would have him second.
Yeah. I mean,
Jeremiah
and
Love.
I heard him on an interview yesterday. Articulate kid, well spoken,
Well, it really is.
and I was very, very impressed. And obviously, some of his highlights are incredible. Some of those spin moves and jumping over defenders and stuff.
He would be the first Notre Dame running back because Paul Hornung was kind of quarterback, running back. Boy, I don't know that Notre Dame has ever had just a strict running back win the Heisman. Tim Brown was a wide receiver. Johnny Lujak was kind of wing back, though, wasn't he?
That was back in the day, yeah. They ran.
Angelo Bertelli was quarterback. Leon Hart was a tight
Wow.
end type.
Man, you got to blow the dust off those Heismans at Notre Dame, don't you?
Yeah, you do. For a national championship, Notre Dame hadn't won a national title since '88. Just imagine if Bama had been almost 40 years without a national championship.
Well, it would be tough to live around here if that was the case.
I mean, just since 2020,
Yeah.
it's felt like 40 years for Bama fans.
Yeah, and the stadium wouldn't be quite as rocking as it is now.
But Bama's such a superior program to Notre Dame. It just is.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So, Brett, we appreciate it, man. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Doug.
Good luck on the Egg Bowl.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, buddy.